Now that we know what a JSON looks like, let's take a look at how it is used in a couple of different languages. We will be looking at Java and Python in this video. First, Java. I already have most of the program written. Please keep in mind that this video is about JSON, not Java. So I will be focusing only on how to manipulate and use JSON in Java. So the rest of the program here is down below. It's all commented, so it's not going to have any effect on our program. To create a JSON, we simply have to say JSON object, which can be imported, and a name JSON equal to new JSON object. And that's it. We now have a new JSON. To add values to this JSON, we simply say JSON.put and we give a key value. Let's say key 1 and a value 1. Now we can just copy paste this as many times as we want because we can have as many keys as we want. However, since all keys have to be unique, let's change the key. And just to make a difference, let's also change the values. Now, we have a JSON, but how do we retrieve data from this JSON? So let's just do a printout from this JSON. All we have to do is json.get and hit control space. Now we see that we have a list of functions that we can use. We can have get boolean, get double, get int, get string, and so on and so forth. However, these functions are useful only if you know the type of object you're going to get back. If you're unsure of what kind of object you're going to get, simply just say json.get and give them a key value. Let's say key 2, and that's it. Let's run this program, and you see that we get value 2 as an output, which is the corresponding value for the input key value. Now that we've seen how to handle JSON, how to add values, and how to print values from JSON, let's take a look at how to get a JSON from a REST API. I already have a REST API running in the background. If you want to take a look at this REST API, you can take a look at it in our REST API tutorial series. But for now, I want to concentrate on the Java part of it. I'm simply going to delete this existing code and I'm going to uncomment this part of the code. So what most of this code, this entire function here is doing is simply doing a get to the REST API. So you don't need to bother about the below part, only this part. This is the part that we are really going to be concentrating on. So here what you can see is that I'm using a particular URL to perform an action. Let's just see what the output of this particular function is going to be. So as you can see, it says the requested URL is localhost 5000 sum1/2. So that means I'm sending two numbers, 1 and 2, and I got back the output of value 3 and the op as sum. So clearly I'm getting back a JSON in this particular variable right here. So remember, I said that all JSON objects are sent as strings. So I'm going to try and prove that now. I'm going to take this function, copy it, and replace this string with the function directly. And then I'm going to say get class. So what this does is it tells us what kind of object is being returned here. So now that I run the program, we can see that the output says class java.lang.string. So clearly, whatever is being returned by this call URL function is a string. Now let's try and convert this string into an actual JSON that we can use. For that, we have a simple constructor in the JSON object. So let's just say JSON equal to new JSON object and simply give the string value right there. So now we can use this variable as a normal JSON. So let's just try and print out one part of our entire JSON. Now we know that it's a string value, that is the operation is a string value, so I'm going to give it as a string. Now let me just run this, and you can see that it says operation is sum. Now in a similar way, we can also get the value by simply changing this from get string to, let's say, get int. and giving the new key, save and run. So here you can see that it clearly says value equal to 3 and operation is sum. So now we've clearly proven that we are able to get JSONs from a REST API and use them in our own program as we see fit. Just in case you have a doubt about whether it's really the REST API or not, here you can clearly see that we've been sending and receiving data from our REST API. So now let's take a look at JSON in Python. Python has a built-in object type known as dictionary, which is the same thing as JSON. So all we have to do is simply define a variable as a dictionary. So let's just give it a first key is A with the value 1, and the second key is ABC with a value 1, 2, 3 as string, and that's it. Now if I just want to print out the entire variable, I just say data, and as you can see, my variable is formatted in the exact manner as you would expect in JSON. If I wanted to only print out one key and value, I would simply say data of ABC as the key and hit enter, and now I get back 1, 2, 3. Alternatively, I can simply say A and get back 1. It's that simple with Python. So let's kick the complexity up a notch. Now we are going to take a Python program, get a JSON response from a REST API and process that. So for that purpose, we don't need these last two statements. I'm just going to comment them out. So in this program, we are importing two important libraries. One is the URL lib, which essentially does the get and post operations for us. And the second library is the JSON library. The JSON library contains two very important methods, the json.loads and the json.dumps. These two functions will become very important in a minute. But for now, let me just run this program and show you what we get. So this is Python space get json.py. I'm giving it a couple of numbers, 3 and 4, and an operation that is sum. And we get back a value of 7. So clearly the program is currently working. Now let's try and retrieve a specific key from these values. So I'm simply going to uncomment these lines, and now we should get back two more lines stating the op and the value. Once again, two different numbers, 5 and 6, and this time let's say multiply. Now it says the operation is multiply and the answer is 30. So now we've seen how to specifically get a particular key value from a JSON. It's quite simple. You just say the JSON names and then I use a square bracket and the key value that you want to retrieve. Now let's take a look at these JSON functions that we are currently using to convert from string to JSON. This particular function, the json.loads function, is what is particularly interesting. The loads function essentially takes a string and loads it into a Python object. Since we are calling it json.loads, it is loading a string into a JSON. There is another function called json.dumps, which takes a Python object and converts it into a string format. For example, let's say data as string equal to json.dumps of data. Now previously we just converted data into JSON format, and now we're converting from JSON back into a string. Now let's see how that looks like when we print it out. Print data as string. Now just for comparison's sake, I'm going to comment these two out. We don't really need them now, and just this. Instead of just printing the data, let's print out the type of the variable that we are going to retrieve, that we're going to see here. So for that, we just use the type function. And now let's run this program. Python space get json.py, and again two numbers and an operation. So as you can see, the first type is dict. Now as I mentioned earlier, Python has the exact same data type as JSON, except it's called a dict or a dictionary. And the second type is a string. This is because we converted it from the dictionary to the type string via the json.dumps function. So now you know how to use JSON with Java and Python. You know how to call REST API and retrieve JSON. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe. And I will see you in my next video.